Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. An Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari an Fatimah az-Zahra alayha salam بنت رسول الله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أؤيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت هذا الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم، أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم، إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذيعا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم قد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وعلي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أفضل السلام
والسلام عليك يا رسول الله
محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد.
बन के साइल आए हैं दर पे तुम्हारे या हुसैन, बन के साइल आए हैं दर पे तुम्हारे या हुसैन। आज पूरे कीजिए अरमां हमारे या हुसैन। फातिमा के लखते दिल مشکل خوشا کے نور عین، فاطمہ کے لکھتے دل مشکل خوشا کے نور عین، ہو رسول اللہ کے آنکھوں کے تارے یا حسین، بن کے سائل آئے ہیں در پہ تمہارے، دستگیر بے کسا حق نے بنایا آپ کو، دستگیر بے کسا حق نے بنایا آپ کو، کیوں نہ پھر کوئی مصیبت میں پکارے یا حسین، بن کے سائل آئے ہیں در پہ، مالک کل نے بنایا ہے تمہیں مختار کل، مالک کل نے بنایا ہے تمہیں مختار کل، آپ مخلوق خدا کے ہو سہارے یا حسین، بن کے سائل آئے ہیں در پہ تمہارے، آپ کا در چھوڑ کے جائے کہاں فرمائیے، آپ کا در چھوڑ کے جائے کہاں فرمائیے، ہے یہ خادم آپ کے مولا ہمارے یا حسین، بن کے سائل آئے ہیں در پہ، آپ جو فرمائیں گے مقبول حق ہوگا وہی، آپ جو فرمائیں گے مقبول حق ہوگا وہی، آپ ہے اللہ کے پیاروں کے پیارے یا حسین، بن کے سائل آئے ہیں در پہ تمہارے یا حسین، آج پورے کیجئے ارماں ہمارے یا حسین، افضل السلام محمد وآل محمد، سورة مباركة الفاتحة.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sayyid Hassan Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For the love of Imam Hassan Al-Askari, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Dua Shifa Maries is requested for all those in need here and elsewhere, as well as those listed on the screen. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakhshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakhshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Ya Allah, let us now invite Sayyid Hassan Rizvi to please come forward for tonight's Majalis. By Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل صدره. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، شفيع المذنبين، رحمة للعالمين، سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight on the 10th of Rabi-ul-Thani, we are celebrating the birth anniversary, the Wiladat of Imam Hassan ibn Ali Al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Random historical interesting point is the 10th of Rabi-ul-Thani is actually not the majority opinion in terms of his birthday. Sheikh Mufid had initially noted this down, and then after some research, the majority of the Shia ulama dismissed the date of the 10th, and they said actually it's probably the 8th. So many of you, if you've gone to other websites or checked other books, it'll actually say his birthday is the 8th of Rabi-ul-Awwal, not the 10th. But regardless, in terms of the life of the Imam, we've talked about this before, how it was one of the most difficult in terms of the timelines of the Ahlul Bayt. And not just in being difficult for the Imam itself, but specifically for the Shias. And we talked about some of the various conditions that were in place, the oppressive policies of the Abbasids at that time. And you can imagine why the Shias would be so discouraged, would be struggling so much at that time. One would be obviously economic difficulties. Right? The Shias were put in various difficult positions. Economics was one of them. In their finances, right? They were unable to sometimes secure wealth. They were stopped from certain businesses at times, right? The Abbasids had very strict policies. And when people knew that there were Shias, sometimes that would detract them and keep them away from wanting to engage in business with them. And a lot of the normal wealth distribution that could have happened or should have happened in the open had to have been done secretly through the network of the Imam. Another was, which I think we've alluded to before, is that there was even a doubt about imamat itself. And this is something that happened during the lifetime of nearly every imam, but it got much worse as time went on. And during the time of the 11th imam, there were many Shias who had no idea where the imamat lied there. Or even worse, they said, okay, even if we recognize Hassan al-Askari as the imam, what's going on afterwards? Like, he's not able to do anything. He has no public appearances. He's not talking. He's not doing anything. What's the value of this sort of imamat? And they thought that, based on the house arrest policies, the sanctions, everything that was done, the bullying policies of the Abbasids on the Imam, The Shias thought that, look, this is it. This is the end of Imamat now. This whole idea of the Mahdi that we've been hearing, forget it. How is it going to happen? And we've mentioned before how the Abbasids knew of this. They knew that there were supposed to be 12, and the 12th was supposed to be the Mahdi. So they were waiting for Imam Askari alayhi salam to have a son, and they were going to go and take that son, and they wanted to bring them to the side of the Abbasids. So many of the Shias were like, this doesn't look good for us. So they were kind of disparaged about that. And it kind of led them to, a lot of them, to this overall idea and a almost complete loss of hope in Allah's mercy. Almost as if they thought that, look, this whole Islamic project that began with the Prophet, was going well for a little while with the first few Imams. Maybe we had some nice, revolution and resurgence with the third Imam. We thought it was getting a little bit better, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then things went downhill. And maybe we've lost it. Right? There were some people who had this opinion. This is not any different than, I think, to some degree, the times that we live in as well. Well, maybe we don't have the exact same issues, but sometimes that air of pessimism, of negativity, of hopelessness, of fear, it drowns us sometimes. And we express that constantly. And there's this constant negativity and like bad energy that's kind of being passed around from one to another. Whether it's at home, whether it's at the center, whether it's at work, and every different place that we are. And we may be able to find at least a solution to a part of this issue within the advices of the 11th Imam. And this is related to the topic that we started last week regarding ihsan. And we mentioned how last night there are various levels or different meanings of ihsan. And according to some ulama, the highest level, the deepest meaning of ihsan is not just doing good or looking at something and saying it's beautiful and recognizing beauty, but going out of your way to make something beautiful. To make something, give it that quality of Hassan, to make and decorate it, to give it zinat. So there are some, we'll look through maybe one or two riwayat, which seems to indicate how Imam Askari wanted to challenge the status quo, the pessimism that was prevalent among the Shias of that time, and then hopefully solve these socio-political and economic issues of the Shias with just this few pieces of social akhlaqi advice. And then this is something hopefully we can start implementing today as well. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let's take a second and just remind ourselves about the sort of situation that we're living in. Many people are, they're happy, like, look, we're living in a country, incredible GDP growth, it's got all the money, all the power, we're doing well over here, we're fairly secure. And that's one way of looking at it. At the same time, we're talking about imprisonment rates being higher than almost any other country. Drug usage rates skyrocketing. Suicide rates off the charts. People taking antidepressants, people who have issues of mental health, who are struggling in many different ways. People who are struggling financially. Right? One statistic I saw today said that 1 in 3 individuals now in the U.S. is struggling financially. 1 in 3. They may act like they're not, but if you look at, again, just their books or the taxes, whatever, 1 in 3 are severely, severely struggling. And this is pre-COVID, but none of the hurricanes, none of that stuff matters. This is something that's been going on for a while. Most of us know very well that the middle class has been deteriorating little by little over the years, right? This is something that's designed, but that's another topic. All of these issues and challenges that we're facing, they express themselves in different environments, as we mentioned, right? The first place that we feel it is in our homes. And especially during COVID, post-COVID, we've been feeling it a lot. Where maybe somebody running off to their work 9 to 5 or their business, whatever, they had to, they were able to be away for their family and their spouse and their kids for a little while. But once they got home, there was minimal interaction. So it was almost as if work was an escape for them. So when they came back home, even though it was a stressful environment, it wasn't that bad. When people were stuck at home, we saw how divorce rates were skyrocketing. Right? The amount of appointments that therapists had received, like their income skyrocketed. Why? Because a lot of people came in for family counseling. Because this was like one of the first times that spouses were like, now I have to sit down and actually talk to you and look at you face to face. I've never had to do that before. Or people had to sit down with their kids and help them out with virtual schooling and all this. It was an incredibly difficult time for a lot of families. And they couldn't handle this, this household at this point. So many people just lost it. So this is just, just the family environment itself. Then, of course, economics, which we've already talked about, right? The deterioration of the middle class, severe economic issues. Even in our own communities, we have this sort of issue where when there are people who, are financially not doing as well as they would like to, maybe, they lost a few clients, or maybe their business is not doing as well as it should have, whatever it is, most people are very shy about expressing it, right? They hold that stuff back. Even though, alhamdulillah, this is a very, very generous community, alhamdulillah. I'm sure most of you know the work that the Welfare Committee does. And it's really good work, alhamdulillah. But, as I have a lot of conversations with the Welfare Committee, they can obviously only help if they know who's there to be helped, right? If nobody's coming forward and saying, I need a little bit of assistance right now, then what's the Welfare Committee going to do? Now, yes, we have recommendations from the Ahlul Bayt that we should be going out on our own and doing it, but still, that would require some level of social networking and knowledge where we would know how people are doing. But a lot of people are still on the whole fake it till you make it idea, right? So they're putting up a front with a nice car and a nice house and fancy clothes and everything, but at home, they're struggling. Debt is piling on over and over again. One bill on top of another, refinancing, XYZ over and over. It's really bad, and they're not explaining that to anybody. Sometimes they hide it from their own family members. Their own spouse won't know about it, right? And that's a big issue. So this was, in our homes, financially, economically. Obviously, inflation's a whole other topic. In politics, the world is, I know it's coming off really negative right now, but again, we're trying to be honest about the world that we're living in. When we're looking out in the world, of course, people who have a liberal interpretation of the world, and that's the way they view things, they're looking at Iran and the Islamic countries, and they're looking at conservative Christians here, the loss of their quote-unquote abortion rights, all these things, they're like, oh my God, our society is going down. These religious people are getting their power back, right? So some people might see that as a positive thing. A lot of people see that as a negative thing. Or we see that a lot more authoritarian regimes are gaining power slowly and slowly, right? So, if we flip it around, as we were talking about today in the Jummah khutbah, the people who are, controlling Hijaz right now, the Saudi Al Saud family, they have slowly been reducing and removing the Islamic identity, whatever it happened to have been. At least it was something before. They've been slowly chipping away year after year after year until now there's nothing left, right? It's clubs and parties and gambling and, Halloween events. There's nothing left over there. I don't think there's anything. Hajj, I don't even know what it's like. Inshallah, I'll find out soon, I guess, when we sit down and talk about it. But who knows what's going on over there right now? You look out at many other places, right? People are starving in third world countries. It's not good. People are still looking, going after water. The Zionist regime is still, constantly attacking the Palestinians. People in Yemen are still struggling. It's looking bleak. It's not looking good. Every time we look, turn on the news, another school shooting, another issue in a hospital. What's going on out here? Even the first world country, we see, people are not really that safe. Constantly minorities are coming out and saying, the police, they're not really there to protect us. Black Lives Matter, all these things. This is still happening. So most people they don't really have a rosy picture of what's going on in this country, nor internationally, right? So it's looking pretty bad. And then, of course, the worst of the worst is spirituality. People are incredibly confused right now. Non-Muslims, meaning atheists and anybody who they've been following these sort of postmodern, cool, free-thinking trends, they have no purpose in their lives. They have no idea why they exist. That's why they have to go and kind of test drive other identities. They're like, well, being a human didn't work out. I need to go and try be something else. I need to try, doing something else. It's not working for me. People are having this severe, severe existential crisis. They have no idea what's happening. So they just start giving into all their physical desires. They have no other choice. They've abandoned all hope, basically, and they found that, hey, I'll just go for short-term pleasures then. And that's how you've seen people have been building themselves up. But with all of that, obviously, comes the baggage, right? You go out and you drink and you do drugs, you go partying, you do all this stuff, fine. It feels great then. You'll get that, dopamine hit, fine. But then right after, it's going to kill you. It's going to hurt you. It's going to harm you and everybody around you. And they all know this too, and they're just hiding that pain. So they have no reason. And many Shias, unfortunately, this is growing in certain communities too, where our own, youth, and Muslims, even elders, are hiding the fact that they are going through these sort of spiritual crises as well too. They have all these questions that's been sitting on their mind that they haven't been able to get answered. So they're sitting with all this darkness, all this negativity. So how are we looking to the Imam for answers? Let me share some riwayat with you. If you can recite, ay salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm going to share, I think, just two tonight. The first one is this: من الفواقر التي تقسم الظهر جار إن رأي حسنة أطفأها وإن رأي سيئة أفشاها. He says, Imam Askari is saying that amongst the fawaqir is the plural of faqira. Faqira is coming from the same word as faqr. Right? Being faqir, we know, we usually say that's a poor person, somebody who doesn't have a lot of money. But the actual word faqr, fa, qaf, ra, one of the original meanings has to do with a person's spine or their back. And it literally means my back has been destroyed, my spine is gone. Right? I have like a spinal issue. And that's, most people who know, if you have a back issue, there's usually no recovery from that. When you have an issue in your spine, like hunched over, whatever it is, there's very little that can be done about that. Right? The spine is a very, very sensitive area. So a faqir is known as that because it's their back has been broken economically, right? They have no outlet, there's no recourse for them. That's why they're known as a faqir. And this same word, fawaqir, or at least the singular version, has been used in the Quran as well. In Surah Qiyamah, Surah 75, and Ayat 24, specifically in Ayat 25. So over there in Surah Qiyamah, for those who are aware, a part of it in the middle goes through the conversation about what will the people who are happy in heaven, what will they be like, and what will they be waiting for? Their faces will be enlightened, they'll be happy, they get X, Y, Z, and it's great. And then Allah says, okay, let me describe to you the other people as well too. So when you jump to Ayat 24, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَوَجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ بَاسِرَةٌ. So the people now, the ones who have sinned, and their sins have accumulated, and now they're in hellfire. So their faces on that day, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, will be what? Contorted. Basira, meaning it's like they're scowling, they're frowning, but it's almost like, I'm not into horror movies, but when somebody's like really, really freaked out and afraid, like that sort of weird like facial expression. Now, why are their faces so contorted and why are they frowning and scowling and freaked out? Why? Because تَظُنُّ, this is ayah 25 now in the continuation, تَظُنُّ أَن يُفْعَلَ بِهَا فَاقِرَةٌ. Right, that word faqira we were looking for. Because they are expecting and assuming and getting ready for what's about to happen to them. They know on Qiyamah, all their sins have stacked up. They see what's going on. Now there's no lying anymore. There's no cheating. They see exactly what they've done, and now they're like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me on this day now? What's waiting for me in hellfire? So now they're freaking out because of that. So it says they are expecting that they're going to get this back-breaking thing happening to them. They're going to be completely destroyed. So faqira, or the plural that's used here in this hadith of Imam Askari alayhi salam, fawaqir, is a bala, a tragedy, or something which is back-breaking. It's really, really bad. So what is he saying over here? من الفواقر التي تقسم الظهر. One of the most back-breaking, difficult bala and things that people will have to deal with is what? A neighbor that whenever they see hasana, when they see something good and beautiful, they decide to hide it. They cover it up. And on the opposite, وَإِنْ رَأَى سَيِّئًا, when they see something evil, when they see something bad, then they open it up and spread it to everybody. He said, this is a back-breaking thing. This is a problem that we have in society. And I share one more hadith, again from Imam Hassan Al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And this is kind of the flip side of it, but it's still along the same lines. It says, خَيْرُ إِخْوَانِكَ, the best of your brothers is man nasiya dhanbik, the one who does nisyan and forgets about your dhanb, forgets about your sin. Whatever sin, mistakes you've done, your brother, your ikhwa, your akhi will forget about it. And the other thing is, وَذَكَرَ إِحْسَانِكَ إِلَيْهِ, the ihsan that you've done, that thing they will remember, and they'll repeat, and they'll go and they'll tell everybody about that. That's what a true brother is. So okay, well, what does this have to do with the discussion? If you notice right now, going back to what we were saying, the world is actually not as bad as everybody's painting it out to be. I was painting it out to be like that because you would all sit there and nod and agree because I listed it out for you. Most of you would say, yeah, it's true, that's true. Why? Because that's all the stuff that's put out there. The famous sort of meme is that the minute you turn on TV, expect yourself to get depressed. They're not going to put on any happy stories. They're not going to show you the victories. They're not going to show you, success. They're not going to show you any of that. They're going to show you crime because that's what gets ratings. They're going to show you, issues where there's economic poverty. That's what will get ratings. because they know that this is what grabs people's attention. If they show some happy-go-lucky story, nobody's going to bother watching it. They know that, unfortunately, the nafs gets drawn to negativity. The ego gets drawn to this, so they're like, let's play this all the time, and people will get drawn to that. It's funny, previously there was, even among the community, a lot of people who, I don't want to say enjoyed, but they got attracted by a lot of the sort of negative style of speaking as well, too. Whether it was the sort of negative thing about hellfire and brimstone and punishments and things like that, which obviously they exist, but there are some speakers who, they offer up this insane amount of detail, and people are like, yeah, we need to hear all of this. Like, I don't know if that's the case, but okay. And then other people who, they bring up a lot of negativity when it comes to certain companions, right? All they do on the minbar is just bring up negative stuff about them over and over again, make some jokes and things like that, and people enjoy it because it's entertaining, right? To, make fun of certain individuals. And they like that. So sometimes there's this easy pull that we have towards this negative, pessimistic, dark sort of ideology. Now, what is the Imam trying to do over here, perhaps? He's trying to say, look, I know right now among my Shias, in this society, things are not looking good. But why is that? It's because you Shias, them at that point and us right now, because you have a tendency to only spread and discuss what is bad. If you actually went out and spread the ihsan, the beautification, the good things that people have been doing, you'll see that people's mind will start flipping right away. Yes, if everybody here starts talking about, I went to so-and-so person in the community who runs X business, and they scammed me, or they cheated me, or they didn't do a good job, whatever. Then what's going to happen? It's going to be the same thing that, unfortunately, a lot of us discuss. Oh, there's no trustworthy Shias. I don't go to Shias who have businesses, I go outside. Well, why is that? Well, how many times do we actually say, hey, I hired so-and-so individual, and they did a great job. They gave me a discount even though I didn't ask for it. They checked up on me afterwards. Now, I know sometimes this happens in Orlando Marketplace, although sometimes the Hassan goes a little bit too much. But that's a whole other set of akhlaq that we have to go through one time, right? I think the akhlaq of WhatsApp is definitely a course we need to all sit down and figure out what to do there. But anyway. But there's a reason why people are constantly after good reviews, because, now that there's algorithms for that, right? When you look on Yelp, or you look on Google reviews, or you're looking on Amazon, you check these reviews. You want to see what's good about it, or you want to see what's bad about it. Amongst our own selves, if we're spreading nothing but negativity, what do you think is going to happen? Obviously, everybody's mood is going to turn sour. With that sour mood and that negativity, we're going to go, and our mind is going to be focused on that same negativity anyway. So where we may have thought about something positive before, now we've been predisposed and inclined now towards what's negative. I may have wanted to say something positive about so-and-so individual, but now because of all the negative stuff I'm hearing, my nafs is like, hey, everybody else is talking about this kind of stuff. Don't change it. Don't be the odd person out. Talk about something negative too. That's the conversation, right? Why would you be weird? It feels weird when you're in a conversation in a group and everybody's engaging in ghiba and they're taking shots at one another. And, you're the strange one out and you're like, oh, but so-and-so, they really are very generous. It's like, what are you talking about? Right? It's like a weird change of pace. But sometimes that's actually the step that you need to take. And that's one of the advices ulama give, is that when you're in a session, if you're not able to get up and leave, or you want to try to counter the ghiba, one of the ways you can do that, counter the backbiting, is not backbiting, but I don't know, what's the opposite of backbiting? Back throwing up? I don't know what it is. Right, saying something good, doing ihsan there. Say, look, so-and-so individual actually does this, they do this, and they spread all that good stuff about them. And then hopefully, and actually, some of you I'm sure have the experience, if one person starts this, some people catch on. They're like, yeah, you're right, he did that for me too. She did that for me too. You're right, when I needed help, I called all these people, and this person was the one that came out and helped me. And everybody then, their mood changes right away, and then even the conversation changes, the ghiba then stops quickly, and everybody starts talking about the positive traits of this individual, or this family, or something like that. Simple piece of advice from the Imam, right? That look, what you need to do is ihsan of one another. That means we obviously have bad qualities. Each and every one of us, we're working on ourselves. Society has bad people in it. We don't deny that. But how helpful is it when we express that and keep that as the main type of argument, the main type of discussion? And as we know, sometimes, I'm a pessimist sometimes, I know this, we say, oh, we're being real though. Like, okay, if you're being real, are you actually being helpful though? What is actually more beneficial? To call things out as they are, or to actually go and do ihsan and try to make something more beautiful? Try to improve upon it. If explaining the situation as it is through negativity is not going to make it beautiful, what's the point? And I definitely say this to myself because I know I have a tendency to sometimes paint things in a very dark picture. But there are some crazy things. I'll just give one example, inshallah, then we'll end for tonight. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we first moved here, we had some individuals come and were kind of surprised and shocked that we decided to move here and serve this community. Some people who we've known since 2010, some who have just, recently we've met them in these past few years. And they said, look, you know what's going on with this community, with all this stuff and all these local issues. Why would you jump into the lion's den? Couldn't you have gone somewhere else? And it's true, we did have other offers for other communities. I said, look, and I gave many different things, but I said, look, you, maybe from within, are only looking at a few different issues from the past few years. What I remember is I have my memories from 2010 onwards. And what I've seen is a huge potential for growth in the community. And I see a lot of positive stuff. And we all know these things too. The amount of volunteerism, for example, which I know we've mentioned a lot, but I don't think maybe it's mentioned enough. I have never seen this amount of volunteer effort in any other community that I've gone to. And that's not just some random, trying to, boast to you guys, but I've been to a lot of communities. I don't see it like this. I don't see it everywhere. Usually it's just 5 or 6 people, maybe, who are going and, cleaning and, doing everything and, helping out. There's a lot of people here who come together and make these programs work. That's a beautiful thing. And, I mentioned this 2.5 years ago when we first moved here. When we first came here, multiple families reached out and said, look, what do you need? They came and dropped off food. They asked us, what do we need? We can help out with this. Everybody, reached out their hands. They came out to support. And that was a wonderful thing. So this is something that, my family and I, we've noticed from back then, and we still see it today. I don't think that that's changed. I think it's gotten actually better. Yeah, there was a few hiccups here and there, maybe COVID-wise, whatever. But generally speaking, this community is one that has, and I do have a positive outlook for. Yeah, these little hiccups and these little issues are going to take place, obviously. And normally, the way the ulama describe it is that when these hiccups happen, it's usually because shaitan sees a potential for growth in the first place. If you see just no growth or no movement whatsoever or no dips, then that means shaitan has no reason to bother you. If you see that there's, fitnas and stuff like that happening once in a while, then normally that means, hey, shaitan sees potential for growth and says, I need to jump on this path right away to make sure they don't grow anymore. Because if there's any more growth, then shaitan says, I'm finished. I need to make sure I stop them before they get any better. So now what that means for us is, 2 different things. Is this negativity has to stop. In all different regards that we've mentioned before. When we're talking about our brothers and sisters in Iman, in Islam, and all these things, these are not just cool little cliche words and titles that we throw around. These are legitimate spiritual titles that are given to people who have the same idea of tawheed and wilayah, and they deserve a certain level of treatment, no matter which place they go, no matter what they believe, no matter what they are, who they are. That's what they deserve at the bare minimum. If you don't agree with them, that's fine, but there's basic levels of akhlaq that they deserve, and we have to be able to extend that. And it's not helpful when either myself or anybody else spreads nothing but the negativity about those individuals. If we hear it, we stop it, or at least just respond to it with what's better. To spread out that Hassan, say, so-and-so individual has done this, and their past was like this. Just make the environment beautiful. And if you notice, this is exactly how the Imam is trying to change our environment. To say that, look, is negativity happening? Are there going to be people who are sinning and going against what Allah wants? Yeah, of course. But if you can change at least the mindsets of people, or as some people say, the hearts and minds of people, and get them to stop focusing on a few different negative occurrences and events and phenomena on the ground, then because of all that positivity there, people are much more than likely to respond in turn. If everybody else, let's say, let's going back to the business example, right? Or the economic example. If everybody just thinks that everybody here is stingy, nobody gives out their money, people are they cheat one another and they lie about their business and all this stuff, if that's what we're going to believe, then what does that do? That reduces the tawakkul and trust that we have in one another. And then it destroys the community. But if we start expressing and sharing, I said calm down on WhatsApp, that's not what I mean, but at least in person. We say, hey, I hired this person, I took a chance, and they did not disappoint. They did a really good job, you guys should use them as well. When everybody else starts to hear that, they say, hey, this person, maybe shares are not all that bad in terms of their business. Maybe I should try somebody else out. Maybe I'll try their business too. And then we all start doing that. And then those business owners who maybe were lacking in their business for a while, even from the community, they'll think, hey, maybe if I up my game a little bit, maybe if I don't, maybe if I do a better job in my business, maybe people will come to me. Because there's so much ihsan going around, I want to get onto this train too. So let me do better work. People will come to me. They'll spread that word out too. Because I know that people will spread these positive reviews. So if you create that positivity and you spread that positivity, then people will latch onto it very, very easily. It'll spread like wildfire, right? It'll spread like a good corona, right? If we put it that way, right? And that's what we want. Whereas if we're keeping it the other way, if it's just going to be the negative stuff over and over again, you see how then the nature of people becomes constricted and restricted, and we're just out for one another and pointing out faults when even though they may be there. I'm not saying that the faults don't exist. They obviously exist. But if we can change the mindset so that it improves my behavior and your behavior and us together as a jama'ah, then obviously we're going to be able to progress forward. And this seems to be what the Imam is alluding to over here. That if we can forget about these little lapses in judgment and mistakes that people have made and say, fine, whatever, you did that. But these are the good things you've done, and I'll share that with people, no problem. Then that creates a much more positive environment, and when we do that, then you'll see how much more potential that we have and how quickly that we will reach that, insha'Allah ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let's move on to our Slido quiz now, insha'Allah. Okay, so who do we have so far? We have Abbas, Haji, Alia, ZS, Muhammad Abbas, Diuji, NC, NFL, Bande Khuda, Material Growl, Qambar, Jabir, Steve Jobs, Abu, Leo. By the way, just because I praise the community, I don't want you guys to be on an ego trip all of a sudden either, right? There's still some issues we got to work on. I'm not. People are still complaining about the timings of everything. Jummah's too long and the speeches are too long. I'm like, oh, okay. Amin Alaka, Zainab, Ridwan, Happy, good job, Mehdi. Nazma Banu, specialists, Fayaz, mashallah, a lot of people tonight. Rapid Sloth, Halal Hani, SSMP. Okay, I think we can get started, inshallah. Good luck to everybody. Okay, what does Askar mean? Army, house arrest, hidden knowledge, or none of the above? What does Askar mean? Obviously, Askar in terms of the title of our Imam, Askari. Okay, 45% of you got that, alhamdulillah, right, as army. Good job. The Arabic word askar comes from the Farsi word lashkar. True or false? All of the above or none of the above? Where does the word askar come from? Does it actually come from Farsi or not? Or is it no? It's just an original Arabic word. It actually does come from Farsi. It comes from lashkar, which means army in Farsi. A lot of words that the Arabs heard from the Iranians or the Persians at that time, they borrowed over and they made it their own. Okay. Which of these is another title of Imam Al-Askari alayhi salam? Ibn al-Riba, Al-Hadi, Al-Naqi, Al-Zaki, or all of the above? Which of these? Right, the Imams had many titles. We know usually just the one or two famous ones, but they all had many titles. Maybe. Some of these may be, some of them may not be. And usually you guys, if you guess all the above, you didn't. It's all the above. Yeah, he actually had all the titles. Yeah. A default rule is almost all of them are known as An-Naqi and Zaki. Okay. Hippopotomonstiosis quipediliophobia is the irrational fear of what? Hippos, monsters, long words, or any large animal. Hippopotomonstiosis quipediliophobia is the irrational fear of what? I mean, should have given it away. It's actually long words. Yeah. Very interesting fear to have. Okay, congratulations to Anonymous, 3 out of 4. Okay, and Mahdi, Abbas Suleiman, Khushari Mubarak, and FMT also made 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. Very close behind in terms of their time, only a few seconds off. So congratulations to you guys. Inshallah, no programs tomorrow, right? And nothing tomorrow. Don't forget to set your clocks back. I mean, most of you don't have to do that anyway. Phones do it, obviously, right, on your own. But at least remember that your namaz is going to be set back now, technically an hour, right? So Fajr, for those who attend, will now be 6 a.m. Sunday morning, inshallah ta'ala. We hope to see you then. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Ahl Baytihi at-Tayyibin at-Tahirin.
Muhammad wa al Muhammad salawat. Inshallah, Mubarak brothers, sisters, inshallah we'll recite Qasida, Munajat of Bibi Fatima, and inshallah we can all recite together. One more time with the loudest of your voice, Muhammad wa al Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Fatima Zahra, Ya 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 Fatima Zahra. छुड़वा दो हमें गम से यही वक्त करम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा तुम्हें बच्चों की कसम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा,
Ya Fatima Zahra,
all together. या फातिमा ज़हरा,
Ya Fatima Zahra.
औलाद की नेमत से है महरूम जमाए, बेशीर के झूले पे वो करती है दुआएं। उम्मीद करम आपका ही बाब करम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा तुम्हें बच्चों की कसम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा, या फातिमा ज़हरा, या फातिमा ज़हरा, या
Fatima Zahra.
हर रंज बला दूर रहे हैं यही फरियाद। शहबीर के मातम के लिए वो रहे आबाद। अब्बास अलमदार का जिसी घर पे अलम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा तुम्हें बच्चों की कसम है। या फातिमा ज़हरा,
Ya Fatima Zahra, Ya Fatima Zahra, Ya Fatima Zahra.
रिज़वान व मलाइक हैं पले आपके दर से। क्यों बंदा इमाम भला क्यों रिस्क को तरसे। हातिम का नहीं ये तो दरे शाह उमम है। یا فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
سجاد کے صدقے اسے آزاد کرا دیں، صغرا کے تصدق اسے اپنوں سے ملا دیں، مومن جو کوئی قید میں بے جرم ستم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
دینا ہے مجھے آپ کو شبیر کا پرسا، دینا ہے مجھے آپ کو شبیر کا پرسا، بھی مجھے جلدی سے بلا لیجئے مدینہ، سانسیں یہ بتاتی ہے کہ ابھی وقت بھی کم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے،
یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
خوشیوں کی طلب آپ سے کی، خوشیوں کی طلب آپ سے کی ہے نہ کریں گے، ہم آپ کی مرضی پہ رضامند رہیں گے، درکار ہمیں آپ سے شبیر کا غم ہے، یا
فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے،
یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
اولاد کی نعمت سے محروم جمائیں، بے شیر کے جھولے پہ وہ کرتی ہیں دعائیں، امید کرم آپ کا ہی باب کرم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا،
چھڑوا دو ہمیں غم سے یہی وقت کرم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا تمہیں بچوں کی قسم ہے، یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا،
یا فاطمہ زہرا، محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
زیارت. السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیک یا فاطمة الزہرا سیدتی نساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا حسن المجتبی حسن الحسین شہید کربلا، السلام علیک یا علی ابن الحسین و محمد ابن علی و جعفر ابن محمد و موسیٰ ابن جعفر ولی ابن موسیٰ محمد ابن علی ولی ابن محمد والحسن ابن علی والخلف الحج القائم المهدي وجزك على عبادك ومنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا قابة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا من الإنس والجان عجل الله فرجك وسره الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كل وليك ابن حسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا دليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا تمتعه فيها طويلا.